today you get into an environment where there are tons of structured finance products, derivatives, that are so complicated that, I mean, I'll tell you, I've gone to seminars and sat in where you all are sitting and listened to some of the people that structured these things talk about it. And while I admit I'm not the brightest light in the room, I can tell you within about 30 seconds, my eyes glaze over. I sit there and say, I have no idea what these people are talking about or what their point of reference is. And I always think that if I'm involved in an arbitration, what I want to do is bring that guy in. I want to put him on stage and say, tell me about this thing and tell these people about it. And I don't think you're going to find many people that have any idea what they're talking about. It is simply so complicated. Went up to see some experts on a structured finance deal I've got experts out of Stamford, Connecticut, really bright guys. Came out of Goldman, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, and we were talking, and I said to them, I said, how many people in the world really understand this stuff? Because I sure did. He said, probably less than 1,000, maybe less than 500. Really understand it. I mean, and that's sort of frightening. That's sort of frightening. But that's the world that we live in. I think that the legal world has also expanded when you think about it. And people that historically have not been exposed to potential risk, money managers, hedge fund managers. I mean, you look at the Madoff litigation as an example, and understand these aren't people that for a moment I think have any guilt for fraud, at least very few of them. But a lot of the claims are they were asleep at the switch. They trusted too much. They didn't investigate enough. What was too good to be true wasn't true. I mean, and it is expanded, if y'all have kept up with it, to where money managers, hedge funds are now being accused of owing back monies that were literally taken by a pure thief. These people are not, at least in most of the cases, the vast majority I've read about, anything other than they thought it was a good deal, they had access to it. Yeah, they probably didn't dig deep enough. They probably should have asked questions, but they didn't. And they are going to be subject to their reputations are going to be tarnished, financial fortunes are going to be lost, and you know they've been ridiculed in the public paper, in the public eye, a lot of traumas. So when we talk about some of the things that can be done, I think that while there are good practices for investors, I would submit to you there are also many good practices for investment advisors. There are many good practices for, you know, money managers, hedge fund managers that are almost equally, you know, applicable. And I think you should keep that in mind given the circumstances of the modern world. One of the things that I think at the very outset, and I don't take credit for this, I give it to my colleague Don Langevort, because when he talks, Don has been an expert witness in a lot of cases. He's been an arbitrator, very, very bright guy. He comes down to what he thinks in many cases is the real problem that exists is a failure of communication. Communication is lacking. And he bases a lot of his talks on two books. One is called Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, I think it is. And the other, I think, it's one of two titles. I think it's He Said, She Said. It may be He Said, She Heard. But the point was the same. is that in the world, what there is often a lack of communication. Communication is not clear. For example, a broker, an advisor, I recommend XYZ. Money manager, recommend XYZ security. I think it's a really good security. I think this history. I've done this investigation, et cetera, and I'm assuming all of that is the case. By the way, there's some risk there, but overall this is a good investment. Money manager, investment. I've told the client about the risk. But what the client's heard is I've done my investigation. This is the greatest deal. It's safe. Yeah, there's risk everywhere somewhere, but this is really a good thing to get into. That's what the client's heard. And the client also is looking at it because I think you've got to accept most clients wouldn't be there if it wasn't because they trusted you. So there really is often just a fundamental failure to communicate. A lot of investment advisors, money managers think, look, I can cure it all by giving someone a thick document, a prospectus, or the like. That talks about all the risk. And I've seen enough of those. They're boilerplate. I don't care what you're buying. They all almost say the same thing. A lot of them are virtually unintelligible. And so what it boils down to is they really rely on what they're told about it. Again, communication. I think that in the communication world, things like investment objectives are often obscure. I've seen tons of documents. We've got 4 investment objectives here. Income, growth, businessman's risk, or speculation. Well, what do those terms mean? I mean, when you think about it, nobody's going to give their money to anybody else if they don't want it to grow some way. I mean, it's sort of counterintuitive. I mean, you just put it in treasuries and sit back or in your mattress and it's going to be there. So anybody that you ask is going to say, sure, I want my money to increase. I want it to grow some. But what does that mean? What does it mean? And what does it mean to you? And what does it mean to your client? I think that, and one of the things I recommend, I encourage clients, if they want to try to be clear, sit down there and don't rely on what these little boxes are. Sit down and write a letter, send an email, telling your advisor exactly what you want. This is the way I look at it. This is what I'm trying to accomplish. Because growth can mean a lot of things to a lot of people.